Finally, I'm convinced JFK's assassination was a conspiracy.
What?
Welcome to the Brewmance. How you doing? My name is Rob Hunter, joined as always by Mike Russell. And we're going to weigh into this because I've never touched JFK, but Mike has been telling me for years, you got to watch the movie. You got to watch the movie. You got to dig into this.
Yeah.
So finally, I've watched it and a documentary to go with it. So, Mike, I'm very excited to have this conversation today.
Yes. Well, look who has shown up to the party, Mr. A couple of, 2 years ago, I think we did a podcast that was about your disbelief of what is called conspiracy theories. And I just think that I would say most of the thoughts that don't just follow on with the mainstream and just kind of go with the flow are not branded properly when it was just, it's a conspiracy theory. That means you just don't believe in the stuff. I'm talking about conspiring, more than one people, groups, entities, organizations, whatever it is, conspiring to push a narrative that is not false or that is not true, and pushing a narrative that can harm or, in this case, eliminate someone. That's why I say conspiracy theory.
Well, let's come back to that because I love that, especially given the pandemic that we've gone through or are still going through. But first, we grab a beer. We have these open-minded conversations. That's what today is. It's an open-minded conversation. Let's push ourselves into what could be possible. But, Mike, we're drinking different things because Operation Clean Out the Beer Fridge continues. So what do you got today?
Belching Beaver Dichotomy Double West Coast IPA. The can itself is beautiful and intimidating all at the same time. I'm a bit concerned to give it a try, but I love the West Coast IPA. So the Double West Coast IPA. By the time we get to the end of this conspiracy theory talk, I might be talking about unicorns and whatnot. So yeah. So what are you drinking, bud?
I have Clown Shoes Mango Farm. So New York Rob Capola got me a 12-pack of Clown Shoes. They are from my birth state of Massachusetts. So I have not had some success with their beers before. So I'm excited to try this 12-pack because it's their Christmas beers. So I think there's 3 or 4 different beers in there, maybe 6 different beers. I forgot to count. But let's give it a shot and see how it goes.
Yeah, make it happen. Now, I have been, if we want to start with JFK here, I have been to Dealey Plaza. I have stood by the grassy knoll. There's an X. If you haven't been there, there's an X where the headshot was in the street. So people will look around. It's a normal hustle and bustle street. I mean, it's in a city. So you kind of look both ways. Oh, no, got a spot. Then you go when you stand on the X. Second idea, that was like total chills because you could see the window of the school book depository. You can see the grassy knoll. You can see where Zapruder was. I mean, everything right there is like, whoa, this is history, and I'm standing right in the middle of it. And from that point, I was hooked. I was like, something's off here, and I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna dig into this thing. And come to find out, you can't talk me out of this. I know I'm
right. I've been there too. It is odd that we, in a way, we celebrate the assassination of a president, but I think it's because of all of the questions. So JFK is assassinated, and this is what I just learned because I've never really dug into this. Obviously, I knew he was assassinated, knew about the Zapruder film. I've been to the same place, Dealey Plaza, like Mike said. I've done all of that, but I never really spent any time with it. So it really happened because Joe Rogan had Oliver Stone on his podcast. And I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this because
this is where it all starts. I'm telling you, this is where everything starts nowadays. Hey, Joe Rogan had a guy on his podcast, and the man is quite literally shaping the entire narrative. It's fantastic. I apologize, Rob. Continue.
That's all good. But I was like, okay, maybe I need to dig into this a little bit because what he was bringing up was what he's researched for essentially minimum 30 years, right? Because JFK, the movie, came out in 91. So you got to go, all right, he started researching it. He puts this film together, and he's pointing out all of these things that I didn't really know. One of them, the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald, the alleged killer, who we've identified by narrative as the lone gunman, even though face of JFK was shot in the front of the face in the Zapruder film. But besides the point, Lee Harvey Oswald was essentially a CIA asset. There's paperwork that says they essentially sent him to Russia. At least this is the allegation. As a spy, Mike? So he learned Russian in the military as a Marine. I think he was a Marine. And he went and defected to Russia. But his name is on a list of CIA assets. So was he a plant? Was he a spy? Maybe. Who knows? He was shot and killed. We don't know the answers to all of these things.
And one of the things, especially when it comes to Lee Harvey Oswald, you just look. He was if he was a CIA asset, if he was learning Russian, it goes against a lot of people's, I would say, judging a book by its cover. He was a very simple man. He wasn't like this super intelligent, power military badassery guy. He was very non-assuming, very meek, and not the highest of IQs. So it's interesting to know that the CIA would do all of this, or think that the CIA would do all of this, and it's just it makes you scratch your head as to say why aren't they taking the top of the top, the best of the best, out of whatever school and putting them into this kind of a role, or just
Well,
an asset in general.
and that could be control. It could be who knows what. So this is what I've arrived at as a conclusion. Because I don't know if we need to go through all the things that I learned that probably everyone else already knows. Like the rifle, and it wasn't really Lee Harvey Oswald's rifle because the way that the straps are on Lee Harvey Oswald's rifle, it's at like the bottom or something, and the one they found is on the side. It's just all of these things. The part that really stuck out to me, though, Mike, was the fact that they called Lyndon Johnson, who had just become president, like a couple of hours after Kennedy was shot in the face. They were like, we got the guy, one guy, end of story. Like, you didn't even investigate anything. You just was like, okay, wrapped it up. Now, and this is my conclusion. Is it impossible for, let's say, the CIA to have pulled this off? Normally, I would say no. And I've said no for my entire life. However, in thinking about it from a different point of view and opening my mind, because anything is really possible, even if it's a 0.001% chance, because I'll point you to 9/11. I do not believe 9/11 was a conspiracy, but it happened. 19 men hijacked planes and flew them into buildings and killed about 3,000 people. And then we went to war for 20 years after that. What do you think the chances of that ever happening again? Probably 0.001%, but occasionally 0.001% happens. So based on looking at 9/11 that way, thinking about the possibility the United States government was involved in either the assassination or the cover-up of the assassination of JFK, maybe it's 0.001%, but it's still possible. I don't know if that's a good argument, a stupid argument, but I'm leaving open the possibility that it happened.
I'm going to give you all you need. You can scrap all of it. You can scrap everything you just learned and look at the current administration. And not getting political here. This. You can look this up. It's easy. It was time. It was time to have all the JFK documents unsealed. Just here you go. You can really see now what the investigation has shown and what we think really happened. Current administration said it would be in detriment and jeopardy of our intelligence community if we let all of these documents out. That's really all you need to know.
And maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need a little bit more mistrust in our intelligence apparatus.
Yes.
Because one of the things I learned about Kennedy was he was trying to change it. So, and I don't know if this is true because there's very little paperwork to back this up, but at least Oliver Stone says in JFK, the movie, that JFK didn't like the CIA because they operated on their own outside of any realm, outside of the executive branch, outside of Congress. And he's like, no. We're going to take the special ops and put them in the military. So at least I know there's a chain of command there. So obviously the CIA didn't like that. So does that mean they killed him? I don't know. But another thing is that Kennedy really didn't want to get involved in Vietnam. Thought it was the Vietnamese' war to fight, not ours. So he had plans to withdraw all the troops. So you had the military apparatus in this. They love fighting war. Bell helicopters, they point out in the movie.
Oh,
stood to make a lot of money on helicopters because they got shot down all the time in Vietnam. So again, 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2, but well, okay, 1 + 1 is at least worth investigating.
Of course it is. And you look at the last president we had, Donald Trump, and you look at I remember speaking with a friend of ours who was in this industry with us, talking about his angst, his non-distrust of our intelligence community, and the intelligence community went to work essentially in lockstep with the media to do everything they could to absolutely destroy the man. It's not a far stretch to think that Kennedy doing the same back then yielded the same response.
Yeah, but it's just instead of taking the closed-minded approach, right, which I always did, I'm like, no way, the government couldn't get away with that. Someone would talk, but I'm like, if you segment the pieces enough, where someone only knows like one little nugget, and this person only knows one little nugget, and like three people know the actual plot, it could happen. It's possible. That's all I'm saying.
It could happen.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the movie in and of itself, because
Ooh,
JFK
yes.
came out in 1991, so it's 31 years old. I just
Hands
watched
up.
it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
One word, Michael, like this. Two words, Gary Oldman.
Yes.
We'll talk about that next year on the Brewmance 550 KFYI.
JFK and Rob Hunter? Conspiracy theories.
Dun, dun, dun.
Rob Hunter coming along with JFK. I forced him to watch the JFK movie after he had watched the documentary. We had seen a couple of the JFK files released, and I said, man, you really need to dig into this. You really need to see this. And I finally got him to, I don't know, find a DVD player, because none of us have that. I was surprised they even had the DVD. It's Brewmance on the radio. We're having a great conversation around some really solid beer. Rob, what you drinking, man?
Clown Shoes Mango Farm IPA, a gift from New York Rob Capola. The Christmas gifts of beer keep on coming.
Darn right. And this is from a man, Conard. This is the Belching Beaver Dichotomy Double West Coast IPA. We'll be reviewing those at the end of the program. So hang tight. The movie, the reason why I had it on a DVD is because it was one of my favorite movies, still is. Excuse me, one of my favorite movies of all time. And a lot of the reason is because it's informative, it's jarring, it challenges you. And the acting, I mean, come on. In the 90s, who was not in this movie? It was absolutely fantastic. And of course, starring Kevin Costner, Tommy Lee Jones is in it, Joe Pesci's in it, John Candy has a cameo in it, which is absolutely fantastic.
By the way, just a side note on John, he plays this New Orleanian. He is a New Orleanian. He became, because I lived in New Orleans for 2 years. And watching him, I was like, my goodness, because you forget how great of an actor John Candy really is. Because most of the time he just plays goofy kind of roles.
Yeah.
But he nailed that. I'm like, man, I knew like 100 people like that in New Orleans.
So here's the deal. You can just tell, you can say, Rob, Mike, listen, guys, come on. I'm not buying into this conspiracy theory thing. Lee Harvey Oswald shot the guy, and let's move on. And we moved on as a nation, so just get over it. That's fine. You still need to see the movie. I don't know if you, I'm sure it's streaming somewhere. You can find it, or you can find it probably for the $1.50 at Walmart in the DVD bin, if you can find one of those, or a machine to play it on. But that's you have to watch it. It stands up. And I want to ask you that because Rob's kind of a contrarian when it comes to this kind of thing, because JFK was a popular movie. JFK was successful. And so Rob usually, when he sees those kinds of movies, goes, nah, I'm not going to see it. Does it hold up, Rob? Does it hold up?
It's really great movie making. There's no doubt about it. Like technologically, there's not any special effects that need to be required. It's literally a movie for actors, and they all deliver under the direction of Oliver Stone. It really is really good filmmaking.
And this is one thing that we say on, I think, across all of our programs, and we just say that, you know, you can disagree with somebody like Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone, I don't really agree with politically, ideologically, but man, I'll tell you something, the guy is good at his craft. Mm-hmm. And when you take this many egos like you have in JFK, this many high-level A-list actors, and have them just giving their best, leaving it all there. Like Rob said, Gary Oldman as Lee Harvey Oswald. And just full disclosure here, I have a man crush on Gary Oldman. I think he's the greatest actor we've had. I think he's the greatest actor. I don't think there's anyone better. The range on this man is just absolutely insane. And this is one of the examples of that.
He literally became Lee Harvey Oswald. Gary Oldman did. And I remember watching the movie. I don't remember. It was like last week. It was last weekend. So but they had the clip of Gary Oldman as Lee Harvey Oswald. It's the same movements, the same voice as Lee Harvey Oswald. That famous video is like, I didn't shoot anybody. The way his lip is, because I had just seen the Lee Harvey Oswald clip like 5 times watching the Oliver Stone documentary. So it was fresh on my mind when I watched the movie, and I wasn't sure. I'm like, oh, is that the real footage? And then I was like, no, that's Gary Oldman as Lee Harvey Oswald. He was phenomenal, but everyone in the movie was phenomenal. And the way that I loved Mike is that basically everyone except Lee Harvey Oswald, Gary Oldman, has a monologue to tell their story. And that was...
It's a good point.
I took a year of acting classes, so that doesn't make me an expert, but it makes me appreciate how hard it is to act, how hard it is to memorize lines, and then say those lines with conviction as if they're your words, because that's the job of an actor. And it really stood out to me with Kevin Bacon's story.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is a prisoner in Angola, which is a notoriously horrible prison in Louisiana. And he's telling the story. He kills it. And I was like, wow, what a cool way to do this. And then the Donald Sutherland scene. So he's the guy they call X, who has all the conspiracies, who says, I'm not going to tell you who, but who stood to benefit. That scene is just phenomenal. So again, going back to what Mike said, if you don't care about the JFK conspiracies, assassination, dogs barking in the background.
Ah, yes, our home studios. Yeah.
Who cares? But it's all about, if you like acting and you want to see actors do what they do best, that's a great example of a movie to watch, JFK.
It really is. Treat yourself if you haven't seen it. You got to buckle in. I think it's what cashes in at just under 3 hours.
This one, the official running time is 3 hours and 9 minutes.
Oh,
but that was one of the reasons I never watched it. But it was last Saturday, right before we did the Brewmance. I woke up. I'm like, perfect time to watch this.
Yeah, but here's the deal, though. So if you can listen to a Joe Rogan podcast, you can watch JFK, because Joe Rogan podcasts are 3 hours long.
It's it's the same thing.
You can definitely watch JFK. I got to tell you, so if you don't know what we're talking about with Gary Oldman, it's by design. The guy just is so across the board. Sirius Black in Harry Potter.
My favorite Potter movie is number 3, where he is in it as Sirius
Prisoner
Black.
of Azkaban.
Yep.
Yeah,
because it added that became like the first adult Harry Potter movie, and he was like the centerpiece of that, right? Not only as an actor, but as a story. So that's why it's my favorite, because you're right, he's just a G when it comes to acting.
Yeah, he is. So it's all across the board. Tommy Lee Jones in this movie was fantastic. Joe Pesci was out of his mind. And the greatest thing about Joe Pesci in this movie is he's not a gangster. He's not a mobster. He's not typecast into this. He's probably very opposite of what you would expect Joe Pesci to be. And it just, again, if you haven't, by the way, if you did see it in 91, see it again. You're going to be surprised. I think I've seen this movie 3 dozen times. I watch it regularly, and it's not something you flip through and you see, on TNT, it's on TBS now, so it's on USA Network. No, it's not that kind of movie. It's a pop in the DVD and just you're in for the afternoon, rainy day kind of movie.
Fantastic. 100%, which we don't luckily have a lot of here in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix, Arizona, but it is wintertime. Sometimes you wake up in the morning, it's in the 50s. It's too cold for us to go outside. Perfect way to watch a movie.
Exactly. Hunker down on that exactly one. Right. It's like going to school, right? Remember that? We are on rainy day schedule. You'd play Heads Up, 7-Up, and all this nonsense. Quiet Ball. Oh, it's terrible. It's a scam for the teachers.
On recess days. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I do remember those days. Yep. That was what we had a gym, and we had this big, it was like a big umbrella, and like twice a year we'd blow it up. It'd be like, how they have the flags on the football field and they waving around. Yeah. It's very similar to that. It just wasn't an American flag. It was like a big, like a tent almost.
It was a parachute.
Is that what it was?
It was a parachute, pal. Yeah.
Nice.
Every school had one of those, and you put the ball in the middle. You do kind of everybody do this kind of thing. Yeah.
See, the good old days.
A big Back umbrella.
When JFK the movie came out, that's what we were doing.
Yeah, we'd play with big umbrellas in the yeah. But yes, it was a parachute.
Yeah, see, perfect. This is why we do the Brewmance, man. We uncover things. I didn't remember what it was. No idea.
I taught you that.
It's literally been like 40 years or whatever. Well, 35 years since I've done that. And it was always a great day, though, when you got to bust that out, because it was a surprise. I was like, oh, yeah, it's parachute day.
No, the best day was dodgeball day. All day long, dodgeball day was the best. You didn't even know. Sometimes you just get your arse whooped. You just really would. But you don't really realize how that shaped you for real life. Because that's what life is. Just one big red bouncy ball and the pills after another. And you just got to learn how to get up and just take it. Just go. Start hucking those things back. I love dodgeball. Dodgeball is the greatest thing.
It's very interesting to think about this, because I've been reminiscing, Mike, a lot about being a Gen Xer, because this doesn't really tie into JFK necessarily.
Yeah, it's okay. We're off the rails.
Yeah, exactly. We were the first people. I was amongst the first 3 million people to use the internet. Like, that's insane. And it shaped me in a lot of different ways, which I'm not quite ready to talk about yet. But at some point, I will be willing to have this conversation. I got to work through some things about it. But in just looking back at that, and thinking, wow, we're the first generation, we're the first generation to use the internet, the last generation to play dodgeball. That's why that's parallel here.
Yeah.
And you look at young people as a group right now and their emotions, and it's almost like they've never had a dodgeball thrown at their face, because if you get over your feelings real quick and you're like, oh my goodness, that dodgeball's flying at my face.
I think there's a lot of people that still have that feeling. The initial one where the ball actually, if you put in slow motion, like it would almost go to a pancake because it smashed so like hard against your face. And that initial feeling, you kind of feel the blood from your nose going out the front and running down your throat, and you're like, this is going to be awesome. And you get up and you just start chucking, and they're like, whoa, 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 you're bleeding all over the place. Got to head to the nurse. I'm like, head to the nurse? Keep looking up. You'd be like,
let's go. This is the game. Let's play.
It's such a fan. I think it taught us what we need to teach the next generation.
100%. So we need to get all the 30-year-olds and have a big dodgeball match. So hope you're ready, 30-year-olds.
Okay, you want to learn? You want to learn? Go to a trampoline gym. They've all got trampoline dodgeball. You want to get your arse whooped by a bunch of little kids that are like, they have nothing but stamina and they're just bouncing up and down
around
and you feel like
fluid.
you're gonna die.
You're blowing out
Try
knees. Yeah.
Try that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in a moment, let's stick with the JFK theme, because what I want to ask you about, Mike, is trust, because I've been really thinking about trust in terms of government through COVID, through the Trump years, and now having this interesting moment of living through that, tying JFK to that. It has shattered my trust even more in key institutions. Next on the Brewmance, 550 KFYI. We've been digging into the JFK conspiracy because I never have. Mike, kind of an expert on the issue. It's the Brewmance, 550 KFYI, and the podcast. Thank you for being with us. The whole idea of the Brewmance, get together, have open-minded conversations, be open to different possibilities that you thought weren't possible or you shut off. Exactly why we're talking about JFK, and of course we're doing it over beers. Mike, what are you drinking this week?
I got clearing out the fridge. I got Belching Beaver Dichotomy Double West Coast IPA, a Christmas gift from my man Coner. Thank you very much. Yes, yeah, we'll review that in a bit.
I'm switching. I got a second beer.
What's it? What?
I got a 12-pack of Clown Shoes Christmas beers from my man, New York Rob Coppola.
That's awesome. So
beer number 2 is called Space Cupcake IPA. So I'm like, yep, gonna try that one here on the Brewmance.
All right. So and I'm looking this up. So what did JFK bring in?
JFK, 205 million worldwide, 70.5 million in the U.S.
Okay, so back in 1991 and today, so this is according to the Google machine, that is adjusted for inflation. I can't even see what this is. So 200 million in 1990 was equivalent purchasing power of, oh my gosh, double that. So yeah, about 500 million.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a successful movie, box office.
Very successful movie, yeah.
And the part that I feel like I'm Joe Pesci now, because I'm like drinking my second beer and I'm like, am I talking about this? Are we going to get on some radar or something? Or I had another alternate theory that I'm going to pose to you as I was watching the movie. So let's go the other way. Let's say there is no conspiracy. Okay. Let's say it was Lee Harvey Oswald who had magic bullets that went through JFK and Governor Connolly of Texas. 7 entry wounds. Mike, you're the avid outdoorsman. You are a firearms expert. What's the likelihood of a bullet being shot from, I don't know, 400 feet away, going through a dude's neck, coming out the other side, and going through another dude 4 times without any fractures on the bullet?
Next to well, let's just call it 0. So yeah, that can't happen. I usually blame when I miss targets on a magic bullet. I said, well, there it is. I said, yeah, call the Warren Commission, because I just found the magic bullet. I totally should have hit that thing.
And that's what you're looking at, and you're like, wow, because I never delved into the magic bullet. I never heard of it. I'm like, whatever. But the fact that they found the bullet in pristine condition, it's like this.
Yeah, shiny.
Whereas the other bullets, they hit you and they.
Right, but understand this too. There's also a explanation out there that Connolly's seat was lower than in a standard town car, so it'd been altered for the president of the United States to be a president, first lady, to be kind of up, kind of more elevated in that way, and the people in the front were kind of slumped down a little bit seat wise, and that would have leveled out the trajectory of the bullet a little more. But still, come on.
There's no
I
way.
mean, it's fantastic that you came up with that. Well, it's a good thought, but no, I'm going to say no on that one. I'm absolutely.
Well, he was a senator, but before he was a senator, his name Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania. That was his theory. And it's like, oh, we'll just work it around this way, and that's where the trust issue comes in, Mike, because I already have a lack of trust in United States government because it's too big, it's too bureaucratic. It very rarely does the right thing. It very rarely stops massive events from happening. It very rarely helps people the most in need in the immediate moment of need. And that's my theory. You can disagree with me, that's fine. But this made it worse because I was like, wow. But my alternative theory, real quick, is what if the CIA likes the idea that people think they did it because it makes them seem real badass? Like, ooh, we're the CIA. So I don't doubt the CIA likes that the theory is out there, whether it's true or not, because like, wow, the CIA is capable of killing a United States president and getting away with it.
This happened November
22nd.
22nd. That's right. Okay, so November 22nd, I think should be, at least I would assume, is a CIA holiday. They bring in cakes and stuff like that. Yes, I agree with you, Rob. Of course. Why wouldn't you? Like it's a mad flex for them. It's an absolute flex where they can say, hey, listen, we didn't do this, but you know what, they think we do. So it's hey, you better watch your step out there, right? You better a new president coming in. You better speak properly of the intelligence community because so yeah, I would totally buy into that. Absolutely. But I still think it's bunkus because this was more than one human being that pulled this off. Secret Service, Dallas police, everything. There's all these types of audibles that were called right as the president was landing, and it's just such a weird thing. But as far as trust in government concerned, you brought up 9/11. I'm telling you, I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't want to believe it. I haven't looked into it because I don't want to believe it. I haven't looked into it because it scares me to the core to think that the Bush administration and the intelligence community did what they did. If that were truly the conspiracy theory is true. So I didn't even look into it. I said, no, JFK, I can't. It's palatable to me. It's for some reason. I mean, we see, one person gets killed downtown Phoenix. We don't even think about it. So the assassination of a president shakes the nation to its core, but not like 9/11 did. I wasn't there at the time. I saw the reaction from the media and I saw how real it was, how just to the core these people were shaking. 9/11, I think, not even close.
Well, I think there was a massive difference between the two. Yes, the head of government was shot and killed, but 9/11 was live on television. Mm-hmm. We watched it. Yep. Millions and millions and millions of Americans watched it. Probably billions of people around the world saw the second plane hit the building. I saw it live. Mm-hmm. It was bizarre.
I did too.
So watching that, you're like, holy crap. And I think I was 23 at the time, newly 23, a couple months into my 23rd year on Earth. And that shaped, I'm 43. So, right, we're 20, almost 21 years removed from it later this year. So shaping my entire political talk career is shaped around that moment, right? The 2000 election, Bush Gore, in the 9/11, that's the arc of my career. So being able to watch that live versus Kennedy, if Kennedy was shot live on television around the nation, would have probably had the same impact. But because it was only news reports, like Walter Cronkite coming on TV, you heard about it that way. You didn't watch it. But that's the idea, right? Is the government appears, at least the way Oliver Stone shapes it in both the documentary and the film, they didn't really investigate it. They closed the book on it quickly, determined that Lee Harvey Oswald, this is the assassination of a United States president, for crying out loud. You investigate everything you have to investigate. They were probably in a rush to control the narrative, right, Mike? Mm-hmm. To say it was Lee Harvey Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald. So no one started talking about anything else right away to be like, the United States government has solved this case. We found the man 70 minutes, coincidentally, after the president was shot. Then he, coincidentally, got shot by another guy while being transferred from one prison to one prison.
And then there's all those lines that they draw between the Kennedy assassination and the Lincoln assassination. I'm like, wow, didn't we just turn two assassinated presidents into a fun game? I mean, like, how is it
Right.
that easy? How is it that easy to us? But moving forward to today and back to the trust, I don't think you could talk me down on this. I don't think that as I see now and the evidence that I have now, I can't say that this pandemic was caused intentionally. I can't say that. What I guess says that's a big conspiracy theory. If you don't believe in every piece of what's been told to you, you're like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You probably think that they unleashed this on the world. No, because I don't have that evidence. What I do have evidence of is a true conspiracy, is people in power and people with a lot of money, corporations, conspiring. Those are working together. Okay, we're going to go with literal definition here. Conspiring and working together to continue this because it's advantageous to both of the people that are conspiring together. And they did. Organization, whatever it is, they're conspiring together. This entire thing has been a conspiracy. And I don't think that's a theory if you step back and look at it and say, wow, the entire political party took full advantage of this. People in power took advantage of this, and governors and things like that, and mayors took complete advantage of this. And there's pharmaceutical companies that are printing money. I mean, money don't grow on trees. It does at this place. And yes, I think that they're in corporate media. You look at who has sponsored all of these news outlets for the last 2 years. It was definitely corporations, big pharma, government conspiring just to keep it going.
Well, there's money at play.
That's what I'm saying.
Power at play. Money and power are not a good mix. It's a volatile cocktail, right, to make.
So for me, as far as trust goes, it's gone. It's done.
Yeah,
and it's so sad because we know politicians. We do.
Yeah.
We know politicians, and you want to like them and trust them, or you want to trust them because we like them. But then there's always in the back of your head, you're like, but still, you're kind of in that vibe.
Yeah, I've fortunately been doing this long enough, been studying it long enough where I don't really have trust. What I have trust in is Mike Russell. What I have trust in is my wife. I have trust in my people. That if I need something, they're the people I call. I don't call Joe Biden. Joe, I got this problem. Can you come solve it? No, I call Mike Russell. Mike, I got this issue. Mike will be here in a second. Like that's the difference between trusting government and trusting your people. Your people will be here for you.
If the doorbell rang and it was the president of the United States, Joe Biden, saying, I'm here to solve your problems, I'd slam the door in his face and just say, call Rob. Yeah, I get it.
What do you mean, on a cell phone? I don't know how to use those things.
I don't. The trust isn't there. And Rob, I think that's something that we hit on Russell and Hunter this week as well. Was you can only trust one group, and that's your people, and it's important. And I think we talked to who was it from Rickety Cricket, Terry from Rickety Cricket, when he was saying if somebody doesn't share your last name, why are you putting any value into what they feel about you? And because those are the only people you can trust. I don't want to hear stump speeches saying that I'm going to fix this and I'm going to get down to the bottom of COVID and I'm going to get this. I'm like, yeah, okay. You're not going to, and you're not going to be here for me, but my family is, my friends are, and they're not going to turn their back on me, and we should be able to do the same.
Well, and look at this. I'll draw a parallel from JFK to not 9/11, but to COVID. Yeah. So I fully believe, doesn't mean it's true. I fully believe that this was a lab accident. I'm not convinced it was done on purpose, but I am convinced that it was a lab accident. Again, I just want to point out that doesn't mean that it is true. It is just my belief, because there is an absence of proof on either one. But like JFK, they closed the book on it early. Lee Harvey Oswald's the guy. End of story. The government did that. In this case, the government said, no, natural. There was automatic emails immediately flying as soon as COVID either hit the U.S. or even prior to that, asking whether it was possible that it was a lab leak or not. It was shut down by the people that created the COVID policies right from the very beginning without an actual investigation. Mm-hmm. And it's still like, no, it's animal. They haven't found the animal yet. It's been literally over 2 years now. That has never happened. Just pointing that out. So that's why I believe it's a lab leak. Conspiracy or not, government done will look bad. That's all.
But here's the deal. So the only part of and I really want to start to get people to understand the term conspiracy theory. So to go to Rob's point. So if it were an accidental leak, there was a conspiracy, people conspired to make sure that no one knew that happened.
Yep.
So it's not a theory. You probably easily just follow the emails and say, yeah, it leaked and we really didn't. We're like, oops. And if there was a guy that said oops or a gal that said oops, the bat lady in Wuhan, if she said oops in an email to somebody else and somebody said, okay, we're going to see, we can just let's sweep this under the rug. That by definition is a conspiracy. They're conspiring to hide that from us. So that's why I've, been subscribing to a lot of conspiracy theories quite a bit, is because I understand the definition. Somebody was trying to hide. The group of people got together and agreed to hide, agreed to promote something or to do something nefarious. I get that. It makes sense to me, or covered up, maybe in several cases.
Here's all you need to know. I want to add to Mike's point here because, as I learn, as I evolve, I learn different things. A species' number one job instinctively is to survive. So if you're in a prominent position, you have a lot of power, you have access to money, whatever it is, you're going to try to maintain all of that as long as you can. Lie, cheat, steal. Like, for example, Bernie Madoff, right? The Ponzi scheme guy. Went to jail, died in jail. But he was able to get away with it for a long time because he was able to fool enough people for a long time. So that's, if you think about it on a base level, how easy it is to get away with things for a very long time. Jeffrey Epstein's another example. Everybody knew the dude was a scumbag. They even put him in jail for a little while, and then they're like, yeah, whatever. Harvey Weinstein. I knew Harvey Weinstein was a creep, and he was raping women for like 15 years. I don't work in Hollywood. I just knew that because of things that I had read and seen in interviews, but nobody wanted to do anything about it. It's another reason why I don't have trust, because I really do believe everything in the world is about money and power. And those two things were huge during COVID and JFK. Doesn't mean there's a conspiracy. It just means that human beings will always act in their own self-interest to survive. Survival for a guy like Dr. Fauci, for example, means keeping his position. So he will do whatever he can do to keep his position. He's not going to be honest with you. Not all the time, because he wants to self-survive.
But going back to, it's a brilliant point, going back to government, though, and going back to Bernie Madoff, what difference is it from what Bernie Madoff was doing in Social Security? No, explain that to me. If you can find a difference, one man went to prison for, and what the government is doing, if you can find a difference there, and don't give me but one does such good for some. No, it's the same thing. It is a Ponzi scheme. And for the government, it's legal, just like insider trading. It's legal for the government. It's not legal for us.
And that's where the trust issue comes in, because
that's what I'm saying.
Deep down, whether you follow politics or not, whether you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, libertarian, Green Party, anywhere in between or further on the edges, you deep down know the system sucks. We all know that. It's like a fact, because it's too big, it's too bloated, it's too bureaucratic, and it doesn't benefit us. So for a guy like Mike, a guy like me, maybe a guy or a girl like you, the system takes more from you than it provides. Sure, we have roads to drive on. It's fantastic. I love that. But they were built before I was born.
It's true.
So don't give me this nonsense. We pay the road. No. My dad and my mom paid for the roads. My grandparents paid for the roads to be built.
I'm in a We the People party because I believe in us. I believe in a We the People. I believe in America. I'm the American party. I don't believe in Republicans. I don't believe in Democrats. I believe in us. I don't believe in politicians. I believe in us. Politicians we've been dismissed as conspiracy theorists because we didn't follow along with their story about how things went in certain times, especially things that rocked our nation. So I decided to stop putting any stock in them and put most of my stock, if not all of my stock, into just what I would say is the American way, just faith, family, freedom. It's the way to go.
I 100% agree with that. So in a moment, I want to rethink JFK's legacy, because in my career as a broadcaster, I have taken some shots at JFK as one of the worst presidents of all time. But now digging into it, I'm rethinking that. Let's explain that. Let's get into that over a beer next year on the Brewmance 550 KFYI.
Welcome back to Brewmance on the radio. I have to point out before we get to the beers that we're it's a wonderful conversation that we're having. I want to point out, if you're looking on YouTube, looking on social media, I want you to look at a special shirt that I got on right now. And if you can see that, and you can scroll all the way down, all the way through all of our videos and tell us where you've seen this shirt before, You just
Do
go
it.
straight to the head of the
Do
class
it.
with that.
Do
I
it.
thought we had a prize, but I'm like, I don't even know if we have a prize. But yes, but this is it was a commemorative shirt, and so that's important. Check out YouTube, check out the social media feeds. You are going to see it. This is the Brewmance on the radio, having a great conversation about conspiracy theories. Really, as Rob has come along to the fold in the JFK world, and he now understands the term conspiracy. We'll get to that in just a moment and talk about JFK's legacy after we talk about what beer we're drinking. This is Rob's second, you jerk.
Well, look, I got a 12-pack. I got a drink. It's called Clown Shoes Space Cupcake IPA. This
Space
a gift
cupcake
from my main man, New York Rob Coppola, retired New York City police officer. This was his Christmas present to me that had just opened
nice.
Tuesday night of this week. So perfect timing for the Brewmance. What do you got,
And a
Mike?
little late, and a little
I
late for
know.
Christmas, pal. But we'll
Yeah,
work on calendars later.
there was a whole story about that. It is what it is. I didn't get
Melting
to see him
Beavers.
on Christmas, dogs, hotels, whatever.
I don't
Some
even want
dogs,
to know
some
now.
hotels don't allow dogs. Is the point?
Okay,
He
thank
couldn't
you.
come with us up to Flagstaff. There it
Something
is.
about hotels and dogs. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Like, that
All
sounds
right.
weird. That's a conspiracy.
Melting Beaver Dichotomy Double West Coast IPA. Okay, Rob, you were talking about JFK, and you're talking about how you were back in the day kind of anti JFK. And I've always thought, well, most recently thought, because I came into this political world in '08. So I've always thought if JFK ran today, dude might not even make it on the Republican ticket.
That's
I
probably
mean,
true.
it's yeah. So, but he had a lot of Republican tendencies that weren't viewed as such back in the '60s.
Yeah, and I looked at JFK's presidency as a failure because of Bay of Pigs invasion and really the involvings of Cuba. None of that really worked well. But now I understand after watching a documentary about JFK's assassination, after watching the movie JFK, which Mike's been telling me to do for 15 years at this point.
It's been a while.
But I realized that JFK was a young man when he came in office. He's about our age, Mike. I think he was like 42. So I'm 43. Mike is
46. That's fine. Yeah, good. I'm good with it. 46. Let's throw it out there, pal.
It is what it is, right?
That's right.
So I imagine being president of the United States right now. I know a lot of things, but I don't know way more things than I know. So in rethinking about JFK and the mistakes he made, he was led to make those mistakes by a very aggressive CIA. CIA wanted to take over Cuba because they were worried about Cuba, rightfully so, because Fidel was a communist, Russia, communist, sending missiles, big missiles, nuclear missiles, 90 miles away from Key West, which could strike anywhere probably in the East Coast of the United States. So I understand the fear the CIA had. I understand that JFK, new president, wants to make a mark. But what I realize now is what he learned on the job and how in 63, he started to turn around, right? He started to have conversations with Martin Luther King about civil rights. So he was very aware of his stature and his position as a Kennedy, but he really tried to change a lot in the first 2.5 years of his presidency before he was assassinated. So in looking back, I've revisited it all. And this is the beauty of being human, because you can change your mind about things. And it's okay to admit that you changed your mind about things. I wish more politicians right now would say, you know what? I used to think this. Now I think this. But it's all about votes and being reelected. So I now think JFK had the potential, if he wasn't killed, to be one of our greatest presidents of all time, outside of the Camelot, Jackie Onassis, Kennedy, all that feel-good stuff. But I really do think policy-wise, he could have changed the entire trajectory of this country, which may be why he was killed.
I don't disagree with that at all. But I do. We'll have a discussion about Bobby a little later. But for me, what I see the parallels of is JFK, for all intents and purposes, wasn't your straight out of central casting politician. He came from a very wealthy family. He had connections. The unions were all a huge fan of his. But when he got there again, he challenged the intelligence community.
Mm-hmm.
Intelligence community was not a fan. He was not a fan of them. We fast forward several decades, and we just had a president exit the White House that did the same thing. Immediately came in and said, these guys spied on me. I don't care what you think about Donald Trump. I really don't. And it shouldn't be relevant here. The intelligence community used a bought and paid for fake dossier to spy on a presidential campaign. That's unheard of. So the man wins and goes in. He's like, I don't trust the intelligence community and they hate me. Same as Kennedy. And you look back at the matrix, you just look at the numbers, just the numbers only. Not getting political here. You look at just the numbers of the Trump presidency, and you're like, by all metrics, I mean, dang, guy was just smoking it. Same with Kennedy. Lower taxes, protect the United States and military spending, especially Bay of Pigs, all that. He was, I mean, obviously well into that, protecting the United States, protecting our homeland, and lowering taxes. The guy hit on a lot of cylinders.
He did. And that obviously upsets the apple cart, as the phrase is. And you don't know the consequences of that. Because Glenn Greenwald is a journalist. He's the guy that broke the Edward Snowden story, which blew my mind. I kind of figured that the government was spying on all of us, but Snowden confirmed that. So Greenwald has gone out on his own, which is incredibly freeing for a journalist to not have editors. You just do what you want to do.
How did he go out on his own? Where'd he go? Where did he end up?
He now writes on Substack. So if you want to follow,
okay.
Yes. So
the reason why I bring that up is because there's another addition to Substack here this week. No, I want to be very clear. I'm very proud of my dude. Look, Rob and I are very, very close friends. He's the little brother I never wanted. I'm the older brother he never wanted. After 15 years, and I'm proud of you for doing it. He wrote his first piece for Substack, and that's why I bring that up. It was a nice
thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. If you want to follow along, robhunter.substack.com.
There you go.
I don't know what I'm going to get into. We're going to get into all these things, but this is just another outlet for me. I don't know. I feel like I've been called to write recently, so I'm going to follow that intuition and see where this goes. Because I really do think the ultimate issue is a trust issue, right, in this country, as we've been talking about throughout this entire radio show / podcast. And how do you restore trust? You do it by being honest. Like, this is how our government works. This is what we do. The CIA, this is what we do. And, give me all this nonsense about, certain things we can't know and shouldn't know. I don't buy that, because we vote for you. We put you in places and positions to really make this country better, not do your own bidding or, ooh, we think this. Because I don't like the United States history of involvement in other countries either. Sneakily, overtly. I really think it's time for us to reassess all the things we do as the United States government.
And the word sneakily. Is sneakily a word? Because I want that. That's a fantastic. It's fun to say.
It is.
Sneakily.
Sneakily.
We're in there sneakily.
Tip. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, but you think about all the countries we've been involved in, we don't even know about. Like, we invaded Grenada. Like, it's an island. Like, what are we doing? Like, Panama. What are we doing? Why are we invading Panama?
There's some elected politicians and some of the intelligence community that don't think that each and every nation wouldn't be better off with a good invading. Why not?
Yeah, I know. It's bizarre.
While we're here.
But I like appreciating that about Kennedy. He didn't want to do that. In the 60s, it was a big deal because 55,000 people died in Vietnam. And for me, it's a profound moment because my dad served in Vietnam. We went to the Vietnam Wall in D.C., and I was 12 or 13. And he's pointing to people he knew that he grew up with were killed in the war. I knew him. And, I'm like, oh, my God, war is horrible, especially for the result we got out of Vietnam. Yeah. I give Kennedy tons of credit to fight against the intelligence and the military apparatus because he wanted to say no. And there's documentation of that.
Look, I've been a fan. I've always been a fan. People are like, oh, but you're a conservative. I'm like, well, it doesn't mean because he had a D by his name doesn't mean we didn't agree on a bunch of things. Yeah, exactly. He's as conservative as they come. He just, had a little thing for Marilyn Monroe. And all you Clinton fans, exactly. Clinton fans be like, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. Yeah, I totally understand.
Well, but I mean, look, Chris Rock said it, and I'm gonna say it right now.
Uh-oh. Are you gonna say this right now?
I'm gonna say it.
Fantastic.
He said a man is as faithful as his options. But it really proves to you, ultimately, some men can resist, some men can't. There's lots of different reasons why, but it's just realistic. Like, if we're using that as a measuring stick about whether a person's a good person or not, it gives us a real easy end route to say, that person sucks. People do it with Dr. King. People do it with Bill Clinton, which I don't think he's a good person at all, but that's besides the point.
They do it with Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
Mhm.
men or women. It's just so funny. People are clutching their pearls, going, "Wow, people of power do bad things."
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know they would do that when they have all this power and this celebrity. Oh my goodness! Yeah, please,
Sometimes, look,
come on.
when you get famous, whether you're a rock star, you're a politician, it almost becomes too easy because there are people, male or female, that are attracted to the power and the money and the stature that want to be around you. And if you look at NFL players, NBA players,
No,
and you look at certain people that stay in that circle, certain women or whatever, you can see how the whole game works. And you can see how the temptation for some is always
nope. I
there.
tell you, buddy, the ultimate example right now is Pete Davidson. That's the ultimate example. That
That guy swings
period.
above his average like every week.
Seriously.
Hmm.
That guy, like, if my daughter brought him, I'm like, get gone, Slappy. You out.
No.
You are not the right type. And he's pulling Kardashian right now. I'm like, come on. Yeah.
Ariana Grande, Kardashian, Kate Beckinsale. You can just go down the list. Those are only
What?
three that I know off the top of my head. It's insane.
Who played Aquaman?
Momoa, Jason Momoa.
Yeah,
Is
Jason
that his
Momoa.
name?
I
Momoa.
saw a picture. I saw a picture of him holding Jason Momoa's hand and said, "Okay, Pete Davidson needs to be stopped."
Thank you, Jason Momoa. Save the universe,
Oh,
please.
he's even going after the good-looking dudes. Oh,
I know. Unbelievable. By the way, Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet, one of my first crushes, getting a divorce. So, speaking of temptations, I'm just saying, don't come around me, Lisa Bonet. Do not. No.
When you say one of your first crushes, buddy, you mean one of everyone's first
Absolutely.
crushes. Yeah, Alyssa Milano, same. You're like,
Mhm.
wow, you helped us through some formative years.
No doubt about it. On that note, let's rate and
Yes.
review these beers. And before we get in trouble with the CIA and the Defense Department and presidencies, that it is.
We're getting in trouble with social media. I'll start with this Belching Beaver Dichotomy Double West Coast IPA. The can art is just fantastic. It really is. It was intimidating. The beer, meh.
Oh, really?
Okay. Because West Coast IPA is like overhopped, like hop loco. This is, especially for a double IPA, is not very hoppy. Like, to advertise it as a West Coast IPA, I'm like, I don't think you hit that. You hit the alcohol content, but you didn't hit that. You might have hit a balance. This is pretty balanced beer. It just doesn't have that hot bite like West Coast IPA should have. So for that, I'm giving it a 6.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got to try new things, right? This is what we're trying
okay
on the Brewmance. Trying new things, talking about JFK conspiracy theories that are 60 years old, but who cares?
Yeah.
That's the point of being alive, is to have these conversations because they're so much fun. Sometimes you try a beer, you don't like it. So I've tried two beers, both from Clown Shoes, from my birth state of Massachusetts. The first one, Mango Farm.
Yeah.
This is actually, I've had a couple of other Clown Show beers, and I think we have on the Brewmance too. They always had this funky kind of aftertaste. And I think that this is sort of a symbol of Northeast beers. That they tend to have this weird IPA aftertaste. They cleaned it up on this one. I'm very happy with it. I don't know if it's the mango, but it cut that weird bite out that I didn't like. So I like it. It's very smooth. So I'm going to give that one an 8. And I'm going to try the other one.
All right.
The Space Cupcake IPA.
That sounds weird. Space
100% in on the conspiracy about aliens, by the way. I 100% think our government knows aliens exist. They just don't want to talk about it.
My biological father, who had security clearance because he worked with a company that built like the SR-71 before the SR-71 was even known to humans. Awesome. He claimed before his death, he was like absolutely 100%.
I would buy that. And that's why I like the Space Cupcake. So imagine aliens flew in a space cupcake.
Okay.
That'd be awesome. I'm going to give this one an 8 too, because again, that same problem, the persistent problem I have with Clown Shoes is not apparent in this beer. So I don't know if they were like,
Clown Shoes.
Yeah, so good job. So 2 8s for the Clown Shoes, a 6.5 for Belching Beaver on that one.
Right.
But
Belching Beaver, I think Phantom Bride is one of my favorite beers. So I mean, that Belching Beaver, it's not a reflection of Belching Beaver. It's just on this one, the advertising's a little off.
But that's why we try things. Hopefully you try things with us. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. JFK conspiracies, COVID conspiracies. Why not have the conversation? Because otherwise, you're just shutting yourself out, shutting your mind out.
This is boring.
It is boring. We thank you for not being boring. He's Mike Russell. I'm Rob Hunter. We are the Brewmance. We are Russell and Hunter. We are the Go Show. All for you.
It's all for you.
Until next week.
Cheers, everybody.